welcome to the Powder Room Show.
I'm Miriam.
And I'm Lachey, aka Shay.
Hey. And today we're here to talk about single moms and dating.
Ooh. You know what? I say that because, well, we'll get into that later. I have a check-in moment. You have a check-in moment?
I do, actually. My check-in moment is about last week. I went to Georgia for the first time. I visited some relatives, and we had such a good time with each other. My auntie, she has a round table in her dining room. And we sat and we talked and we ate and we laughed and we cried. And we just had a good old-fashioned good time just getting to know each other, just breaking each other down in all the right ways, building each other up, and just really getting to the core root of like some of the issues that we've been having with within ourselves. So we did that like I think 3 consecutive nights, and it just was really refreshing to not only be in a new atmosphere environment. Georgia is beautiful, by the way. I love it. Shout out to Lawrenceville, Georgia. I had such a good time, and we passed through Atlanta too. It was so great. But also just that refreshing with family members, like to be able to just be real and just learn something and get something from one another. What about you? What about your check-in moment?
Wait a minute, real quick. Did you feel full when you came back? Like you felt full in spirit. You felt full in wisdom because of those conversations.
I did.
Those are like the best trips to me.
So
those are the best trips.
Yes.
Okay, so my check-in moment is about the topic dating. I feel like it's always, I can never get the right guy, meaning like in age. I always get like the 18-year-olds. Mind you, I'm 33, but I have this young face, so I get the extremes of men approaching me. So it's so funny. It's like I get the 18-year-olds who think I'm in high school, or I get the 59-year-olds, 60-year-olds who are like older than my parents.
Right.
And it's like, Lord, can we get it right? You know what I mean? So it's funny to me. It's like, why do I always get the 0 to 100? I always get the extremes, but it is what it is. I'm like, and I have to tell the Power Pros that, because it's like, do you guys ever feel like you get the extreme? It's either like they crazy or they're like lazy. It's like you never get
crazy or lazy. Or both.
Right. You never get like that perfect one. So whatever.
So today we have a special guest. She goes by the name of Jocelyn Him.
Hey.
She's a 27-year entrepreneur. She obtained her associate's degree last year as a web development, and she currently works from home as a web developer. And she has a 7-year-old son with special needs. Okay. And she's here to talk to us today about dating as a single mom. So welcome, Miss Jocelyn Him, to the Powder Room Show. We're so excited to have you. So, as you may know, our topic today is dating as a single mom. So, tell me about your personal experience as far as dating as a single mom.
So, in my experience of dating, I feel like I haven't really given myself much of like a breathing room to, relax and get to know myself. And so I kind of jumped into dating pretty quickly. But I feel like I've also had pretty good luck with it, because I've met some really amazing people along the way, and it's taught me a lot about myself and what I like as far as standards in dating. And so, especially with like the relationship that I have right now, I've learned a lot about how to be more patient with other people and be more patient with myself, because it's taught me to be more patient and more forgiving in my relationship, especially with, my boyfriend currently. He is, like every other man, sometimes if they haven't had a child of their own before, they don't understand like how much time and effort it takes to be a mother to kids, or to be a parent to kids, and so I've had to sort of like explain to him how you talk to kids and how you discipline, especially. And that's one of the things that we've sort of thought about before, is like, how do you discipline someone else's child? Wow. Especially when you've never been a father before. Like, do you just automatically step into it, or do you allow the mother to sort of take the lead, and then you kind of just are there as a supporting person? And that's a whole different topic, of course, but that's one of the things. Like, I'm very fortunate in my relationship right now that he's willing to learn, and he's willing to understand more about this, stepping into the role of being a stepdad and things like that. We haven't gotten married yet, but he's still willing to completely commit to all of that.
That's
Nice.
interesting.
Okay.
See, for dating, for me, I think, and I'm gonna just keep it real. I'm very frightened of dating. Like, I'm not there yet to allow somebody in our space to do that because I have trust issues. And I feel like if it's some things that I even have issues with the father, I can imagine this stranger coming into our lives. Because at this point, we're a package deal, right?
Right.
So it's like you're coming into our lives, and how do you, for me, I'm thinking like, how do you allow that person to be themselves, but understand that you're coming in our space.
Right.
So you have to kind of adapt to us
Right.
and not just me as a mother by myself, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Makes
Like,
sense.
was that an issue for you as far as like allowing him to come in the space, and was it a tug of war for you, honestly? Was it a struggle for you as a single mom, like allowing him to be himself, but at the same time, you have to show him that he needs to recognize that you're in our little space.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because I mean, you're a package deal, and if you're with someone who doesn't like your child, I mean, that's a no-brainer. It's a deal breaker, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? So how do you deal with that?
So that's one of the big issues that I had in the beginning. We would butt heads a lot, and I had this problem with like trying to make sure that he was the right person for me and also for my son, because I know that a lot of times when I go into a relationship, I want to make sure that my son is not sitting there on the side feeling like his mom has been taken away from him, and now like this new man is in the life. And especially for a little boy,
Right.
he's like the man of the house.
Right.
You know, so when a new man comes in, it's like,
My
well,
son
who is
definitely
this
thinks
guy?
Exactly.
Why are you
Right.
going out with him, and why are you sleeping in the bed with him, but not me?
Oh.
Because I'm your little boy, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the big issue at the beginning, and like I would always push my boyfriend to spend more time with my son because I wanted him to bond with him. And that-
have their own relationship.
yeah, and have their own
Right.
relationship, and not just spend time with all three of us, but just have the two of them go out and like have their little play date together, you know, and so he could sort of like, you know, build that trust. And so it's still sort of like a work in progress right now, but I feel like they've built a lot more of that trust. And then along the way that, you know, we've sort of been introduced to his family as well. So his
great.
parents have sort of become like, you know, my son's grandparents now.
Oh, wow.
So he's
Yeah,
recognizing
that's
that a
amazing.
little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a
And
little
that's
perfect little blended family going
yeah,
on
I
over
know.
there.
That's pretty cool. And I know sometimes because my auntie actually she's a lawyer, but she specializes in blended families. So I know not from firsthand experience, but just stories and just hearing different people their perspective on their personal experiences. That could be a hard thing to do. It's not always an easy transition. So that's amazing that you guys were able to accomplish that and to incorporate his family too as one. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I know you speak about like having patience and developing like certain characteristics about yourself as far as dating goes. Like how did that transition into you dating your current boyfriend and having the patience that it requires while he adapts to the situation?
So along the way, when I'm learning, to be more patient and things like that, it's more so just the fact that we both are committed in our relationship. And even though, we butt heads a lot, we have a lot of arguments, at the end of the day, I think it's important that both people are trusting each other and that they're willing to work through it. And that's the part that helps me a lot, is that when I'm, in the middle of an argument and I'm like ready to just get out and leave, and like, you're not the right guy for me.
Exactly.
I've had so many more, I can just go out and look for more. But
Don't mess with Jocelyn. Yes. She'll put you on a bench.
Yes.
Okay?
Oh, warming it up. I love it. Yes.
I love it.
But I just feel like the fact that he is willing to fight for me, and that shows a lot in a man, because usually if you get into a relationship where a man is just so willing to just like up and leave, then it makes you not have that trust for them either. But when you find someone who is willing to sit down with you when you're having an argument and you're both just crying and like hating each other, but at the end of the day he wants to like be affectionate and hold on and say, we might have a lot of problems and we may not fully understand each other's worlds because we come from two different worlds, but I'm willing to work it out.
Wow, that's powerful.
You know what? I want to ask you something. In your bio, and then of course learning a little bit from you outside of the show, you mentioned that you have a 7-year-old child who has special needs. Now, were you nervous to even, how did you incorporate your son's special needs? How was that with your boyfriend? Because having a man accept your child to begin with is very hard, but then it adds another layer to if your child has a special ability that they're dealing with that a man might not understand. And then a lot of times, a lot of people might not accept, a time back then where people didn't understand it. And now we have better resources and technology to understand spectrums of special needs. So how did you guys talk about that conversation with your son having special needs?
So having a child with special needs, it's like a completely different world. It seems like, like when you have a child that needs certain things that other kids don't need, people have to slowly be introduced to that world. And I feel like with my current boyfriend, for him, he started off with not really being exposed to children at all. And so it takes a special person and a special, heart to be open to something like that.
Right.
And so when I introduced him to it in the beginning, I would be very open about it. Like, my son has special needs, and there are certain things that you have to do with him that's very different from other children. But I never did it in a negative way, especially like when you're a parent with special needs, you always treat their special needs as a part of them, so you make sure it's like always positive. Like, he might be tube fed, but this is a part of him and he eats a special way. And you always make it a positive thing for the child and also for them. And, obviously when they come into the relationship, they start to see a lot of the things that you have to do on a day-to-day basis. But the thing is, like, if that person is open to it, then they will really appreciate you for the type of things that you have to do, and they really admire you as a woman. Like, this is a strong woman.
That's right.
And she does everything she needs.
That's
and
right.
it's kind of like, they just like admire you from afar. Like,
That's
wow,
right.
she does all of that by herself, and she's a single mom.
And they want to
gives
be
you,
a part
like-
of that world.
And it gives you like extra points.
Yes.
It's like,
On the
oh, she got it all. Like, she got a
that's
child,
right.
and she doing it, she making it work. Going back to the dating part, as far as like blending the family, my example of bringing a man in was my stepfather. And I don't reference him as my stepfather, only in situations like this, me explaining the story. But he married my mom when I was 4. So that's pretty much like my dad, right? But the way my father loves me, like, you cannot tell him I'm not his daughter.
Right.
And then me having a child, you cannot tell him that's not his grandson. Like, it was just, my mom prayed and she made sure that she really took the time out to consult God with blending her family. And a lot of people didn't know that was my stepdad until we got married, and they saw the last names on the invitation, like, wait, something ain't adding up. Like, her last name is this and your last name is this. Like, yeah, that's my stepdad.
Yeah.
But because of the chemistry that me and my dad have, you would never tell that's my stepfather. So I'm always thinking, like, the millennial men who are like in my age group, they're missing that. It's like, and that's where my fear comes in. It's like, how can I find somebody, I can't say like my dad, but that's my example as the greatest stepfather. Like, he loves me like his own child. Who's gonna love my son like their own child? Like, do you ever think about, like, who's gonna love this baby like me? You know what I mean? Like, it's his. Like, he was there with me at the hospital, and I know that he would make sure that he's safe and secure like I do. Like, do you think about those kind of things?
I do, yeah. I always think about those kind of things, and sometimes I worry about things like that because I constantly have to think, like, I have this first thought whenever I do anything in my life, like, is this going to affect my son first? And then after that, I do the rest of it. So, like, whether it's like going to school, whether it's getting a new job, it's like, well, I have to think of my son, like, how am I going to make sure he's taken care of,
Right.
all that stuff. And so it's definitely a learning curve for my boyfriend, you know, because for him he's a single man, and like he's never had a child, and so for him his first thought is always like, well, what do I do first?
Yeah.
Wow.
But I have to teach it to him,
Right.
you know, and I have to tell him like, well, if you decide that you want a job first, then we have to have like this family meeting. It's like, okay, so is this going to benefit all of us, and is it going to affect us in a bad way or a good way, you know? And so it definitely is a learning curve, but it can be taught. And if they love you enough, I think that they will definitely be willing to learn.
Adapt, yeah. And I also have a friend that her husband, she's been married to him since her children were like 2 and 3. So most people don't even know that he's a stepfather until he announces it. You know, like she's even considering getting their last name changed because he is so committed to those children, like to the point where if they were to, God forbid, get a divorce or anything, he would still take care of them. It would be the same thing. He's attached to those children. Yeah, so that's great. But I remember we did off camera have a private discussion concerning introducing men to your children too soon. Like I remember specifically, I was thinking about dating a guy, and you're like, wait. Don't introduce him, not introduce, but even tell that I had a children. And so our perspectives kind of differed on that. Like, can you give me more insight as to like, what do you feel in terms of like letting men know that you're a mom before a certain time frame?
Yeah, with that conversation, I remember that we talked and you were saying that, you know, on the first date, you told him that you had 2 kids. And I was a little bit taken aback, I guess you could say, because for me, you know, when I first meet a man, I don't even like know who he is, you know, like I don't know if he's like a stalker, you know, serial killer.
Right. For the worst. Yeah, you just never know.
Like if they on the first date seem like they're really nice, then I feel like, you know, there's still like things underneath the surface that you have to find out before you make that judgment, because like you could meet anybody on the first time and they would be like the most charming person ever, and then come to find out later they're like 3 times married, murdered their 3rd wife. You know what I mean?
Oh my God! I was Jesus.
She went all the way there.
Yeah,
right?
she did. But you know what? That could happen.
But it's real life, and the crazy thing is, it's not. We always like, okay, that's definitely the extreme, but the extreme is real life at the same time. Yes. You know, we hear those stories and we see those documentaries and we see those things on 2020 and things like that. And it's like, people always think like, it'll never happen to me. Right. But you have to be very vigilant when it comes to your judgment of when to introduce your kids to these men, because you never know. You never know. And you don't want to always assume that people have your best interests at heart. People are crazy, you know, and you have to just be mindful, you know, you have to be very mindful of that. So another thing is, when do you start being exclusive? Like, is exclusive off the back, or is it like, when is it too soon to be exclusive just with you two, you know, or should we wait till later to see if it works with the blended family first to be exclusive? Like, was that a hard decision for you as far as like when to be exclusive with your boyfriend?
It was, yeah. I think it took about maybe 3 months in order for us to start being more exclusive. In the beginning, we would go out and have like dinner dates, and then we would, you know, meet at some public area and just kind of talk and get to know each other. And then it started being more like over the phone, and we would text, you know, daily just to kind of catch up on each other and see what we're doing. And then over time, as the friendship develops, you start to learn a little bit about that person, and, you know, you feel like you can trust them. And then, you know, like I started meeting his mom and his dad just by myself, just to see what the vibe was like. And his parents were nice, you know, and like I think from the time that I've met his mom from then until now, like she's still the same person.
Great.
So that's really
awesome.
nice.
Yeah.
But right off the bat, you know, like sometimes people don't tell you the problems that they have in their family, and so like you learn it later. And so that's one of the things that I didn't really catch with things like that, is like, you know, you don't always know the problems that families have. But I'm fortunate that, you know, nothing's gone crazy. And I think after around 3 months, I introduced my son to his mom, and like over time they've built that relationship. So I think it also it matters, like, if you take the time to kind of feel it in your gut, like, when is it right to start slowly integrating it? So you just kind of have to trust your own self.
That's good. That's good. And children will tell you too. You know, like your child will be around your boyfriend or potential boyfriend, and they'll let you know, like, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm not feeling it. Like, yeah.
Yeah, actually, with a situation like that, with my previous ex before this, that was one of those things where, like, my son would tell me that he didn't want to be in the same room with the other person.
Wow.
See, and you know what? I'm glad that you're the type of mom and woman who didn't ignore that. Because a lot of times women get desperate because they want to be in a relationship.
Right.
They completely ignore their kids' vibes and their energy and even what they're telling them. I remember I had a friend, she said that when she was dating this guy, every time he would come to her house, her daughter would scream on top of her lungs.
Oh, wow.
And she was probably like about 2. I don't think she was at an age where she can verbalize that. But she said the energy that he was bringing it just wasn't right. And she couldn't ignore that. She's like, I don't know why every time he came around, she would scream, she would fall out. She just could never get her to calm down. And she said she had to just say, you know what, I like him, but obviously it's something that hasn't came to the surface yet that he's hiding.
Right.
And my child's energy and the way she's feeling her spirit towards him is not right, so I'm gonna just leave him alone. And then when she's married now, when she ended up dating her husband, who her husband, it was just like she just loved her husband.
Aww.
And you cannot tell her that's not her daddy.
Yes.
And you can't tell that man that's not his daughter.
Yes.
And I just love that testimony because it's like, I'm glad she was one of the women too who didn't ignore that. Look at these, you hear those birds on our set? They trying to get into the dating conversation.
They got something to say.
Right. But I'm so glad that you didn't ignore your child's feelings because their feelings are valid, and if they don't feel safe and secure with mommy, I mean that's just a terrible place for them to be at.
Yeah.
So that kudos to you, mom, because you weren't desperate to say, look, I want a man and you have to just accept him and get over it. No, my child don't like you, so I need to step back a little bit and see why.
Yeah.
And I need God to reveal that to me. And I think that's always my biggest fear. Like, Lord, I don't want to be with the wrong man.
Right.
I just can't, because I can ruin my life, but when it comes to my child, since it's not me by myself,
oh my gosh.
I can't ruin his life. I can't marry the child molester, the sex offender. I can't marry a person who's abusive physically. I have to be very careful. So I think, and I try not to be so extreme to put that fear in me, but then you have to consider those type of things. It's a lot of people I know who've had horrible stories and horrible experiences with step parents.
Right.
Please do not ignore your kids' feelings when they are expressing that they're not interested or that this man makes them feel a certain type of way in a negative way. Don't ignore it because you're just so quick to be in a relationship. It's plenty of men out there it's plenty of men out there. You don't have to be so desperate where you ignore your kids' feelings. Please do not do that, because you will kick yourself in the foot.
Oh, yeah.
You will feel so horrible if your child gets hurt because you were just being that desperate, not vigilant for your children's feelings.
Yeah, and for example, there's a lot of men out there, like you said, that also don't care about your kids, as an entity in your life, as a present being. Like, some men, they may be only attentive to your kids because they have ulterior motive, but what about the ones that don't even care that your kid exists?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, for example, no shade intended, okay? But I gotta keep it real. I had a high school friend that I've been knowing since I was in the 10th grade, and he was in the 9th grade. And we remained friends. After high school, we were just strictly friends. Nothing ever went down between us. We were strictly friends. But, I met my kid's father. I dated him. I got pregnant twice. And then now, boom, I have 2 kids. And he's still around. Now, he had already made it obvious to me that he wanted to be with me, maybe two years prior to me meeting my kid's father. But I wasn't interested in being with him. Come to find out, when I had my kids, he still was interested in being with me. But he was not interested with me, being a father or a potential father to my kids.
See.
And the funny part is, he never really would admit that, but I caught it on several occasions. We would go out, just hang out, and it would be me, him, and my kids, because he was cool, he was a friend, he would help me out in certain areas, help me move and different things like that. And people would say like, "Oh, those your kids?" And I would hear him say like, "Nah," you know.
Oh, see.
Yeah.
Girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh,
And
just
like
brought some
I
out.
would bring it like, ooh.
Like, excuse me?
Yeah.
It'll be a privilege for
Like,
you to be my
yes,
child's father.
thank you. And I had to get to that point. I'm not gonna lie. Like, as a woman, like I felt that my worth was kind of diminished once I had kids. And it took me a while to build back up my
See.
confidence in dating. So recently, I just started back dating like within the past like 6 months.
Yeah,
Because
I
of
did think
that.
about that.
Yeah.
That came across my mind too. Like, now who's gonna be with me? I got a child. And
Yeah.
they ain't want to be my son's father. But I'm like, at the point now, who cares? If they don't, they don't.
Oh yeah, what
Because
else?
my baby gonna be my baby.
That's right. And then he's beautiful, and so are
Right.
you. You guys are a package deal, like you said. And what I've learned throughout this dating, 6 months of dating with children, the right man will want a chance to prove that he can provide for you and your children or your child. Like they want to show you that they're the man, that they can lead that tribe and, be the strong man in the house. So yeah, bring it on.
To spin off from that, actually, my current boyfriend, we've had, head butting moments where he will actually, say things like, "How come Nathan won't call me his dad?"
He wants him
something like
to.
that. Yeah, because
Wow.
Nathan hasn't fully accepted him, and with a child who's gone through like maybe one relationship and another relationship, they're kind of like iffy on it,
Mm-hmm.
and so he's still calling him by his name. And when we're in public, sometimes, people will ask, "Oh, like, are you gonna go to your dad?" And he's like, "That's not my dad."
Oh, wow.
And then he gets so hurt about it.
And
he's like, he'll go home in the middle.
Nathan's still proving this point, like, I'm still the man of this house.
Girl,
You know what I mean? He's like, look,
I'm
I'm letting you borrow mom for a minute, but I'm still the man of this
That's
house.
right.
Yeah.
That's so, I love Nathan.
I love Nathan too. Shout out to Nathan. What's up,
He put
boy?
his foot down.
I know
He's
he
like,
gonna watch.
no. But this is my
right.
question though.
Yeah.
When he says that, does that make you feel a certain type of way? Like, do you think that maybe either he's not liking him in that sense, or he's just not ready yet to fully? Because I think also too, kids, they do guard their own hearts.
Yeah.
In a way where they don't really know how to verbalize that, but then they come off a little harsh by saying that because he wants to make sure that before I get too comfortable, you're not gonna walk out as well.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is, like he had, my ex, he took a while to call him his stepdad. And then when my ex and I didn't work out, then now he's more guarded.
Right.
And so now with this one,
From his previous experience.
yeah, exactly. And so
Yeah.
he's constantly like saying things like, "Oh yeah, like, where is your ex-boyfriend?" Some things like that.
Wow.
He'll mention him in the relationship in front of my current boyfriend.
So he probably misses him.
Oh.
Yeah, or he just like accepted him at one point, and
Yeah.
now he's out of the life.
Wow.
And you know what? It takes our kids a minute. Like, you know how like we know off the bat that person just wasn't good for us. So
Right.
we quickly get them out our minds.
Right.
But their little hearts is so tender. It takes them a little bit of time, like to get that out of their system.
Right.
Like, dang, like what happened? We were good, Mom. What happened to him?
I was gonna say, to piggyback on what you're saying, like in terms of like taking a while for our kids to transition, like how did it affect you to see that your child, you know what I mean, like it's still kind of attached to your ex, and you like, he's not here no more, like this is where we at now, like how do you break the news, like and continue to like reiterate that?
Well, it's a very difficult question because you don't know how to answer it in a way that's very child-friendly or age-appropriate. So usually when he asks me that question, I just say, well, sometimes families don't work out, and grown-ups don't know how to get along very well, and even though they might have loved each other at a certain point, love can, end up not working out. And sometimes that's just how it is, and you move on, and then you find new love, because there's a lot of love to share.
That's good.
So my son, he actually wants me to date.
Oh.
He's so beyond his years. But I think because he had his dad in the home with us, he actually just missed the man's presence in the house. And he says things like, he wants a dad in the home. Like, I want a new dad, but not saying he wants a new dad. I don't think he's saying that to replace his dad, but he's like, but I want a dad to be here with me, to do my crafts with me, and, do this, do that. And I can tell that he misses that. So for me,
Wow.
I'm like, And my mom thinking like, well, I'm cool. Like,
Right.
I don't know if I want that right now, you know? But then I look at his little heart. I'm like, Lord, like my baby really wants a father who is more hands-on, who's in the house with us. He feels like, and I think too, because his environment, all the kids around him have a father in the home. Okay, so it's not like he does, and then his dad is active in his life, but he's not in the home. And I don't care how you put it, when you're not in the home, you're just a half-time parent, period. Like, when you're in the home, you're hands-on, you're there all the time. So I think that's the thing that he misses. So he's always asking me, like, did you find a husband yet?
Wow.
I be like, boy, like, be 5, okay? Because this is, you stepping into grown women or grown people territory. So I'm like, you know what? I always have to reiterate to let him know that we're whole without a man.
That's right.
And I want you to be happy, and I want you to be okay, because if mommy never gets that at your age, you need to be okay with that. You know what I mean? And that's something that I'm practicing, letting him know that we're whole in Christ.
That's right.
And God is gonna be he's your father regardless you get a dad or not.
That's right.
But God he's here with us, and we're fine, and mommy is happy, because he always says, I want you to be happy. I'm happy, baby.
Right.
You don't see me crying for no man. I'm happy. We are living our best life. And if the Lord decides to open that realm for us in this lifetime, so be it. But if he doesn't, I need you to know that you are going to be okay.
That's right.
You know, you can still thrive. You can still be a better man. You can still be happy. My son is ready for me. I think, too, I'm getting on his nerve. It's like, you spending too much time with me. I need you to have your own business. So I need you to find you a man so you can get out my face. I think that's part of it, too, you know.
That's so funny. And you know, I actually have a different perspective, because I thought I was ready to date. And then I realized that I wanted to spend more time with my children. Like, it's like, okay, like, do I date? No, I want to spend time with my kids. Do I date? No, I want to spend time with my kids. And now that I'm dating, I look back and I'm like, I'm grateful that I waited. Like, I'm glad that I waited, because I think that where I was in myself, like, even though I have my kids, like, the first thing I said when I had my son was like, I got 2 kids. And I collapsed, like, on the delivery table. Like, I had to mentally process the fact that I was a parent. And looking back, I don't think that I was really accepting of the fact that I was a parent. Like, it was kind of hard for me to admit that, but now I can say I felt like I was still single in a way, you know, just with like a little bit more responsibility, but I can still do things as a single person. So I felt that I was ready to date. Like, I wanted to date, but I knew deep down inside I wasn't. And I would have taken away that one-on-one bond, that those experiences that I get to share with my kids, if I would have dated, you know. So I'm glad that I took my time. But I think, like, now it would be a weird transition for me, because they've never had an in-house father. So now that their biological father is beginning to be in their life, like, more, they're cool with that. That they can say, my dad, and they play that word out. I'm like, okay. He did that much to be like my dad, but they, you know, they feel comfortable saying it, and it's cool. But having like a, you know, getting married and having an in-house like father, I don't know how that would affect me. I might take a little bit of that, a little bit like, you know what, I'm sleeping in a little bit extra. I don't know how that.
You need to.
Yeah.
You have to, because it's and especially if you have a good man who wants to take that responsibility as being the father. Yeah, sleep in. Like, my mom made sure that she wasn't going to marry anybody who she didn't feel comfortable as giving him, okay, you go to the parent-teacher conference this time because I want to, you know, I have things to do, or you go pick her up, or you take her to the sports events, or, you know, you stay home with her and do her homework, or you stay home with her because she's sick. If she couldn't feel comfortable in letting her guard down 100%, she wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's my whole thought process. Like, if I don't feel comfortable letting my guard down, and not saying that I'm looking for a man to be a father for my son.
Right.
But I think off the bat, it's like, you do need to be a father for my son, because you're going to be in the home and you need to be that example of a man.
Example.
Period.
Yeah.
You know?
And how you treat me as a woman. Like, they need to see that love interchanged.
Can you give us any other little nuggets? Because, like, I haven't dated. I don't know if I'm ready to date. Who's to say? God might see my person next week. I'm like, oh, y'all got a new man.
Hey.
You just never know. But I'm gonna say this: I'm not opposed to doing it if I do get approached. If that makes sense. Any little last minute pointers you want to give the single moms out there when it comes to dating?
Yeah, I would say that when it comes to dating, it's definitely good to take it slow, but just not too slow. And even though, you know, when you're a single mom, it's hard to trust people sometimes. I think that if you allow yourself to sort of just put a little bit of faith in people, and not expect perfection right away, that eventually things will start to fall into place, and that it's not an entirely scary place to go if you allow it to just kind of carry you a little bit, and trusting yourself most of all, and your kids to just guide
That's
you.
some good stuff.
That is good. I like that. Hey.
That means next month I'm gonna have a new person since she gave us some good advice.
That's right, girl.
Anyway, we love you, Powder Puffs. We are so glad that you were able to come and join us. Make sure you please subscribe to our channel, and we'll make sure that we give a shout out to Jocelyn Him in our comments. If you have any other questions or comments, make sure you do that below. Welcome to the Powder Room Show. Make sure you subscribe to our channel on YouTube and hit us up on Instagram as well. We are all social media content, okay? Come and join us in our living room. We love you, mommies. Have a good one.